Welcome, creatives, community, and kind folks to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. Welcome, Death's Angel Shadow, and everyone else who is part of the show. Today is Tuesday, so that means we are delving into Level Up Advanced 5th Edition, and we are continuing a kind of an open discussion about uh, encounters and monsters and making them better. And I thought I would show off uh, a feature of Level Up Advanced 5th Edition, also known as A5E, for those who do not know. Now, as an aside, we understand that Wizards of the Coast has, they did a boo boo. They smacked us in the face back in January. And so now, fifth edition no longer belongs to Wizards of the Coast. It doesn't belong to Dungeons and Dragons. It is in the Creative Commons. Dungeons and Dragons belongs to a corporation, but fifth edition does not. It is in Creative Commons. And so, therefore, many third party creators have projects in which they are creating their own version of this very popular D20 system. This particular system was created by N World. It is called Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. And we're going to look at it for creating encounters and how the idea of having static numbers and static monsters that do static things is no longer an issue, at least as far as this goes. So we will be taking a look at the two of the three books that were created for this game. The Trials and Treasures book, which is it has the treasures in it, meaning like magic items and valuable items, as well as the exploration pillar, which has been fully realized. And we'll also take a look at the Monstrous Menagerie, which is which is the monster book for A5E. So I wanted to show you guys some encounter design features, and there's even a way to, they even give a way to make your own monsters, or heavily suggest that you do so. Not that you ever needed permission to do this, but sometimes, we over canonize the written word and think that we're not allowed to change it, even though directly in the writing documents it says please change this kind of thing. So here we are with Trials and Treasures, and this is we're going to go into the chapter of encounter design. And in this chapter of encounter design, we will take a look at. Let me be able to move this here. In encounter design, we'll take a look at um, combat encounters, social encounters, and then one part of my favorite, which is using the environment. Oh, it's so underutilized. Oh, it drives me crazy, and I love it. Full disclosure, I was one of a number of designers for the Trials and Treasures book, especially the environmental part of it. So yes, I was one of these individuals. So when it comes to exploration count encounters, you might want to think about. Let me expand this look here so you guys can actually see some of it, hopefully. But so when part of your designing your adventure, you may want to consider whether this is going to be inside of a dungeon, or this is going to be extra planar travel in urban area or somewhere in the wilderness. And of course, these are very generalized, because what is a dungeon? A dungeon could be a cave system. It could be underground. It could be in a sunken ship. It could be in a wizard's tower. A dungeon usually is very internal. Of course, in urban region, you may have players delving into the sewer systems, running along the streets or across rooftops. And in a fantastical realm, these urban areas could be quite large and quite expansive, depending on how you design them. And of course, we have wilderness, Arctic, desert. I'm not going to call it the A word. Yes, I will. The accursed desert, a dreaded swamp. Of course, we've got caves and coastal regions, and even deep sea. And then there are social encounters, and depending on the type of social encounter you're going to have, you will also want an outcome for it. For example, in a social encounter, are the players trying to convince an adversary or an opponent or NPCs? Are they trying to develop a relationship with them? Maybe they are. Maybe you want to consider if they're just doing this for entertainment purposes, for metagaming, like for the table, they're just having fun, or they're trying to entertain some kind of enemy or adversary, and they could also try to get some information from them, basically a rolling interrogation, or they could try to occlude their functions. The player characters may be disguised or trying to convince someone that they've come across a road or in an urban area or down deep in a dungeon that they belong to one faction when they really don't. So let's see here. Trying to pop back and forth here. Sorry about that. Uh, yes, Death Angels, you did get to the show before I got here, which is kind of cool. I know many of you, especially those who live here within the time zone of the states. This show starts pretty hella early, so I appreciate it. The Ant King says, "I wonder how many of those independent 5e products will feature villainous coastal mages. I don't know. I don't know, but I I'm a proponent of it, so hell's yeah, I hope so. A mage that lives in uh, a coral reef with globules of air pockets down in there, where he conducts his experiments or something. I don't know. I see. I like that kind of stuff. Yeah. And anyway, that is how I look at 5e. I don't believe legally 5e no longer belongs to a corporation. It is in the public domain now. It is so. I look at Dungeons and Dragons separately, which is an intellectual property owned by a corporation, versus 2014. So, yep. I love it. All right, so let's get back into our descriptions here. So, along with our encounters, whether you want to have like a challenge based encounter or story based encounter, we there is math. If you are someone who's really like you really deep into the woods and you want to balance the encounters, there we do have a mathematical method of you measuring the capabilities of your player characters and what kind of CRs or challenge ratings you would like to put them up against m- um for easy, medium, hard, all the way up to impossible levels. And there is a chart here that you can use to uh, measure the effectiveness. So you can look at the party composition, for example, along the side of this chart here. You could say an easy battle for three adventurers, and then you go across. Are they fifth level? Come down. An easy battle for three adventurers would be a culminated CR2. Now you'll see, like I need to find a spot like sixth level, and you start to go down. A deadly battle for four individuals at sixth level would be CR18, and that means a combination of all the CRs of all the adversaries, one adversary, multiple ones, that kind of thing. So it is a amalgam of them. So you could have one CR8 creature and then five CR2 creatures, which adds up to 18, that kind of thing. And depending on the type of encounter composition, you can design them any way you want. We also have something pretty unique here, which are elite monsters, and over here on the left. And an elite monster is not a legendary monster, but you can apply the elite template to any monster in the book. And for A5E, an elite monster is basically a monster that is double the CR of whatever creature you decide to make. Elite monsters usually are unique. They have a name. You build a story around this kind of creature. You don't just toss them in. So an elite monster is not only a double CR, it's a double creature. It's one creature that is twice the power of a normal creature. It's got nearly twice the hit points. It has double the attacks. It's two monsters built into one. It's basically a boss monster, and you can of course take a legendary monster and make it an elite monster. But you can do this with any number of creatures, and it's especially good uh, to use them for uh, your your classic. leaders, generals, admirals, um, master level monsters. So it says over here, an elite monster is a powerful opponent designed to provide a tough challenge to a large group of players. Often, an elite monster is a variant of another monster, a leader, champion, or even a named individual. For example, um, Belartheus, commander of the first, is an elite pit fiend. An elite monster has approximately twice the hit points and deals around 50% more damage than a normal monster of its CR, and it usually becomes more dangerous as the battle goes on. An elite monster poses the same challenge as two non elite monsters of its challenge rating. For example, the Tarask, an elite CR30 monster, is as dangerous as two normal CR30 monsters. It should provide an epic fight for 4 or 5 well optimized adventurers of 20th level, or a hard fight for 6 or 7 20th level adventurers. Uh, that's using the Tarask as an example, an elite Tarask. When determining encounter CR, double the challenge rating of an elite monster, and so on and so forth. So that's where the elite monster comes from, the idea of that. And then, of course, we talk about using legendary monsters. And then we have the adventuring day, uh, combat encounter types. Now, mind you, because the third pillar has been expanded, it doesn't necessarily mean every encounter. Don't mistake the word encounter for combat. An encounter can you can have an encounter with the environment, rope bridges, rock falls, storms, et cetera, et cetera, social encounters, and they all are part and parcel of your encounter day. So, and of course, we have to the very right combat encounter types, whether you want to have a solo fight, boss and minions, and talks about gives you some guidelines for that. Maybe you want to have commander and troops. You want to have team versus team battle. So you have a, in a team you have just as many as you have player characters, and you can even do a combat horde of monsters. And then we also have alternate goals. Excuse me. Combat encounter complications such as like alternate goals, ranged attackers. Maybe you use a lot of terrain and hazards, and waves of monsters. And then examples on if a combat fails, the player characters fail against in a combat counter or against elite monsters and failures of that type. And then we get to some of my favorite, and that is a challenge rating increase. So to the very left, we have a breakout box that gives us ooh, a list of challenge rating increases if you add a physical exploration element to a monster to make the environment and the monster combine together to make it far more interesting and maybe even far more lethal. It complicates the lives of the players. It allows the monster to have a bit of an advantage in its home turf. It's almost like creating a mini lair, um, or wherever the monster lives. Like, for example, polar bears don't consciously live in a lair, but they do live in the Arctic. Therefore, it benefits them. So if a polar bear were to, you know, get a bear hug a PC and dive into the water and drown the PC, it's not that it's their lair. It's just it happens to be their their environment. And of course, the environment should work in their benefit if they're adapted to it. Now, mind you, a monster does not need to be adapted to the environment. A a horde of hobgoblins that captured a noble in their family and decides to go up into the Arctic North, and they weren't prepared to be chased up into the Arctic North, they too could be having problems. But of course, the environment could be an issue. And to the very left, we have an example of a number of these things from, and it increases the CR. So if you're someone who loves to do the math, you can mathematically figure if keep stacking these environmental effects, how tough will it be to fight the creature when this also complicates the issue? So you have things like acid and brown mold. We've got crowds, darkness, dense smoke, extreme cold and heat. Of course, falling. You got to have heights and things like that. Falling, fire, frigid water, green slime, heavy precipitation, high gravity, lava, low gravity, magnetized ore, memory crystals, miring ground, like in a swamp or something similar. Doesn't necessarily have to be a swamp. Poisonous plants, rushing liquids. We've got ourselves some strong winds. It could be underwater, vacuum webs, yellow mold, and these are all examples. And of course, you can reframe them, reuse them, things like that. So let me see what you guys have to say. Mm-mm. Um, the End King says most of the monsters are extras working for $200, but the elite monster is a veteran character actor who is unionized. Exactly. Yeah, they get paid above. They get their name above the line, right? yeah, yeah. The anyway, it's a Hollywood thing. There are certain actors that are allowed to get their name above the line in the advertisement, and they are portrayed. Everybody else is below, and they're just hoping to get some craft services. The A-King says a polar bear's lair where the players can find ice cold fizzy pop potions of no sleep. Or I thought it would be more sleep. Hibernating. I don't know. Mm-mm-mm. Fizzy potions. Anyway, okay, let's get back into it. Um, one of the things that I love, uh, that I really appreciated working on was being able to include these encounter elements, because the encounter elements you can frame them how you want in the environment, and I didn't get an opportunity to use some of the popular nomenclature that I like to use, which are like uh, static environments or reactive environments, moving environments, timed environments, and things like that. So, for example, static elements would be like maybe there's acid, brown mold, or darkness or dense smoke in a specific area of when the players encounter monsters, and through tactics, one side or the other may try to push their enemy into the dangerous situation. So maybe there's a pit with smoke and fire coming out of it, or a river of acid, or a a wall that's covered in brown mold, and the PCs may try to martially push or shove the enemy into the smoke or the acid or something. The same goes for the enemy. Maybe they are trying to do the same thing. Um, there could be something that's growing or moving around the environment. So let's say that smoke, it's a burning building, and the smoke is starting to billow because the building is also caught on fire. So you could have smoke and fire, and it starts to spread, and it starts to close off areas of safety so that the players and or the enemy may have to go navigate through the fire or through the smoke to get from one place to another. And then you can start adding things onto it, like a burning building would have fire and smoke, and then maybe there's falling because some of it is starting to collapse. If the players are underneath, say a roof or something, it could try to collapse on top of them, pinning them down. And so you can use all of these and stack them in any kind of way you want to. Of course, a lot of these are very dungeon oriented with the green slime and brown molds, um, uh, that kind of thing. But we do have things like frigid water and precipitation, magnetized ore, poisonous plants, and things of that nature, to use. So if you have places in wilderness, places in different planes of existence, or you throw some sci-fi elements into it, you can absolutely do this. Strong winds down dungeon caverns is also a cool thing. Any kind of rushing liquid, whether it's seawater or something like an aquifer. Your adventurers are traveling into a sewer system and there's rushing liquids, whatever. Um, I love that kind of stuff. Webs, yellow mold, etc. Now, the as we move on into the exploration part of adventure design, this is very much like getting into the roles that players can have when they're adventuring in through the deep wilderness. I have videos on that. We may get back into it again, but I did want to point out something about winning at exploration, and that's all this part of the document, where when the environment plays its full part as the third entity in the triangle of conflict, winning means more than just dealing damage. It could be getting from A to B. So, for example, the adventurers must get across a dangerous region, such as crossing a raging river, frozen lake, crumbling cliff, narrow rope bridge, or getting the high ground. Become just as important as dodging a foe's blade. Fighting enemies may be involved, but the goal is to get from origin to destination, not stay and fight. And this is a great way to add alternative win conditions if you have to have a win condition in your role playing game. So let's say there's a volcanic eruption and there's lava pouring down the cliffside, the mountainside. So sure, the player characters could stay there and fight, but maybe it's better to get the high ground as the lava starts cutting off areas to get to safety. Another way is to close the gate. This is one of my favorites. This is a catch-all for sealing an entry, be that a door, magical portal, or an actual gate holding back a dire threat. For example, monsters, floodwaters, or gallons of slime. The solution might require brute force, such as moving a boulder, slamming a door shut, or sliding a giant stone cube, or a specific key, such as reading a ritual, grasping magic rods, or disabling chanting cultists. And closing the gate is so common, and it is for a reason. It's a trope for a reason, and that is the goal may be to close the gate. The gate could be a magical portal that keeps disgorging more and more enemies. Of course, you want to close that gate. Maybe the gate is to protect a castle or a keep. You want to drop the portcullis. We've seen this many times in action movies where um, a blade or an accurately shot arrow or crossbow bolt cuts the rope. Maybe it's heavy chains and a very strong PC must pull a rod or move a rusty chain to get the portcullis to drop down. Um, Slamming a door shut with enemy tentacles trying to reach around corners, or the fingers of the undead trying to push their way through is a very common thing. Closing gates is very common. It's kind of cool. Also, the drawbridges, getting to a particular location, like a boat or a starship or something like that, and leaving the docks is also a kind of a closing the gate kind of thing. Survive. Sometimes it's just a matter of taking the hits. The environment can unleash brutal onslaughts upon both body and mind, offering no alternative but to hunker down and wait out the storm, literally or figuratively. And again, this is like sandstorms, hurricanes, tornadoes, necrotic lightning bolts from the sky, whatever the case may be. And lastly, it could be win the race. An enemy we want to get to a location before the adventurers, and the game's eminent challenge becomes rapidly crossing a region, avoiding delays, and getting to the goal first. Examples include getting onto a rising drawbridge, rolling beneath a lowering portcullis, catching a drifting boat leaving shore, the first to snatch a magic item, finding shelter from a storm, or reclaiming panicked mounts before they disappear into the wilderness. And those are just some examples. Winning exploration. And yeah, so let me see what you guys have to say because I've been talking a little bit too much. Yeah, it's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. I know. It was terribly portrayed. I got their point, but ooh, mm, 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 mm. He's got. So Death Angel says so. These are sort of an extension of legendary actions, or did I miss the transition off of the elite creators? So it's not an extension. Sorry, I missed this. Okay, so the question is the question that you have um, are are these extensions of legendary actions, meaning elite monsters? So let me go back. Let me just page back up here. Um, you did not miss anything. So all of these are options that you can use when designing your encounters. One of those options is creating and using an elite monster. So an elite monster is double the strength of a regular monster. That is up to you. How do you want them in your game? Do you not want them in your game? Um, an elite monster is separate than a legendary monster. You can make a legendary monster elite. The the way you make an elite monster is to double that monster. That's That's the rule. So, and I'll show you some monsters. There are some monsters that are listed in the Monsters Menagerie where you're going to see an example of how these elite monsters were created. And some of them have new combat abilities, some new reactions. You'll see how they're created. But basically, an elite monster is double the strength of a regular monster. You can have a double strength owlbear, a double strength minotaur, a double strength. Now, are some of them legendary? Not really. You can also use this. It's basically just a way to say, hey, listen, let's be honest, fifth edition has terrible math when it comes to a solo monster fighting a big group of player characters, just because of the numbers, right? And the action economy. So to equal the action economy, if you double a monster capabilities, it's like fighting two monsters. It's one creature, but they have double the capabilities, and so that's how that's done. So you haven't missed anything. It's just a version of that. Now, in addition to that, and yes, if you do that, you can make a legendary monster hugely powerful, right? Because you kind of don't want to double the abilities of a Tarrasque unless your players are really that powerful. And in fifth edition, they can be. In addition to that, you can take any monster and add to that an encounter element. Um, these encounter elements are what you can see before you: darkness, dense smoke, extreme cold, acid, brown mold, lava, a magnetized ore. You can use one, you can use multiple ones. You can have a, I'm going to use the word battlefield. You can sprinkle the region with a number of these things. You can have them in a random encounter list and say you roll randomly for every round. What new thing happens? You could make them up. Maybe, for example, I mentioned the Arctic Reach. I'm getting away from the desert for a moment. So we have the Arctic Reach. What could happen there? Let's see. Let's find some things we can add into an Arctic Reach. Extreme cold, you can use that. We might have ice cliffs, so we could have falling. We have frigid water if there's a river or waterfall nearby, right? We can have heavy precipitation from snow or sleet or rain. What else can we if we want to go far more fantastical? We could have memory crystals of ice shards or something. We could have rushing liquid with that waterfall or frozen river. We might want to have strong winds, so it's not just snow, but it's blowing sideways, right? And then we have underwater if someone falls into that frigid river, right? So you don't need to pick one, you can pick many of them. They could be stacked, they could be timed. So every other round, a rushing liquid. Every other round, the strong winds of the storm cause the docks to be flooded with freezing salty water as you're standing on the docks fighting the Sahogan, if that's how you pronounce it, the shark lamprey faced NP monsters, right? So maybe every round is strong winds, but every other round, rushing liquid sweeps across the deck, right, and may push the PCs into the ocean, and then that in that case they have to swim or they're underwater. So yeah, you can combine them and use them in any way you want, and there is a chart that tells you how you can increase that CR. And then here we get into our other journey expedition and using pack animals and tracking your supply and finding havens, and then weather events, and then of course some of my favorite, which are your journey activities. And any player character can pick journey activities, but we're not going to get into that. But some of these are like befriend animal, chronicle, cooking, busk, um, hunting and gathering, scouting, gossip, praying, robbing passersby, covering your tracks, maybe entertaining passersby or gaining some gossip or gathering spell components or harvesting if you're into that kind of thing, tracking, that kind of stuff. All right, so let me let's see. You get over here to the Monsters Menagerie, and we'll get back to what you guys have to say. Mm, 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 mm. Now, the End King says it could be tornadoes and hurricanes. It could also be hiding out in a zombie-filled shopping mall. Yeah, any of the above, right? Dead grasping hands. I love it. Mark Desune says, I like that Obi-Wan is one to talk about high grounds after the way he did Darth Maul. Yeah, yeah, sure did, right? Like, you've got the high ground, except for me, which I know. Terrible, terrible execution, but we love the stories. Come on, we love it. Gaster Two Soul, what's going on? Says, I feel monster encounters should be something that has to do with territory. All monsters in the real world have territories, homes to stay in, so why not have it be the same with monsters? Exactly. Perhaps a gelatinous cube likes to stay within tight corners of dungeons because that's how it's able to consume rodents and other prey. Perhaps dragons most naturally hide inside of caves that contain rich ore and minerals with a high temperature inside. If they're right, red fire breathing dragons, sure, why not? Gaster Two Soul goes on to say, or even mimics, and how their territories are abandoned structures where they could hide in and blend in with the environment that they're so given. Um, I absolutely agree with that. I don't think your comment will. This one should show all the way up. Yeah, there we go. All right, so yeah, I mean, of course, monsters. Sharks and alligators, they're not just dangerous, they're dangerous because they attack you in their home turf, right? When a shark attacks you, it's not walking on land unless your sharks are like boulets and they've got legs. But an alligator grabs you, pulls you down into this murky swamp in which you can't see. Hopefully you can't breathe. It's hoping you can't breathe, and then starts to tumble and spin you around. You know what I mean? Trying to remove a limb or something. Pretty dangerous, right? Um, Creatures with wings will tend to fly, especially in tall regions and high cliff sides and things like that. So yeah, they're going to use the environment to their advantage. Of course, they're going to do that. So I think it makes perfect sense. When the environment isn't used, it would be like fighting on a flat plane against a green screen, essentially. I mean, we say it's an accursed desert, and we say it's an Arctic region, and we say it's a dangerous swamp. But I mean, do we really use any rules to make those places dangerous, even when it comes to traveling and um, crossing, you know, uncharted regions all the way to having our combat encounters? Because we should. The Ant King says an elite Tarrasque should only exist on Monster Island, and it should have a breath weapon, of course. Actually, Tarrasque needs a breath weapon in general. Crime, it never had one. Also, the Tarrasque, I'll get to it in a moment. The Tarrasque here is a bit different and a little beefier in the Monsters Menagerie. That's why Sly Flourish is very bullish about the redone math for the Monstrous Menagerie. Yeah, you got to have some crevices. Mike Marin says the Arctic Reach could be filled with sandstorms and dust tornadoes, maybe some giant scorpions and magical cacti. Oh no, the accursed desert has reached out and corrupted my Arctic Reach. You can't do that. No, I know. You just, I love the sarcasm. Gaster Two Soul says, depending on which territory you're located in, depends on what type of monsters you encounter. Lost inside an ancient library that extends endlessly onward, made by the faceless scribes of the Gathulus? Yeah, right? Boom! Mind flayers stalk the shells, waiting for new knowledge to enter their abode. Although they might get tired of reading books and might want to read your brain. Got a deep forest with a cave, an owlbear. The environment matters just as much as the monsters that live in them. Absolutely. I mean, for example, owlbears in dense forests or maybe jungles or something. I mean, depending on how dense the forest is, would depend on like how much range can your bow and arrow or crossbow shoot, or throwing that javelin. Can you even see far enough when your allies travel further away from you in this dense forest? Maybe every creature in the forest after 30 feet, 20 feet, 5 feet is considered to be behind, half cover or three quarters cover or something. And you go to, I want to use my healing spell and heal my allies, and it's like, well, unless you can see them and target them, you can't do it. I use a magic missile. No, you don't. because you can't see your target. Mm-mm-mm. Mike Marin says, seriously though, it's just giving me an idea for magically moving glaciers. You just throw some cardboard platforms on the battle mat and have them move 20 feet every other round, adding some movement. There you go. Slow clap. Yeah. Yeah. Move that shit. Yeah. Throw that stuff on the battlefield. Maybe get yourself like um some if you're a miniatures person or you're using a virtual tabletop, make a pong or use cards or something and move it around on the battlefield. Maybe you use a die. You roll a d6 and a d6 determines which direction it moves next as it floats around in the frozen waters, or there's a flaming sphere that's moving around, or a tumbleweed that's literally tumbling and capturing people, or any other kind of thing, a tornado or dust devil, hurricane, bolt of lightning striking out of the sky. Yeah, aren't the Tarrasque supposed to be eater of worlds? They should be. Dare I ask, have you seen my owlbear? We like owlbears now. They used to be dangerous. Now we're just like, no, they're cool. Oh man, Gaster says with the involvement of the environments to the combat encounters, I feel that we should use the environment to our advantage, especially when it comes to slaying animals that live in vast lands. Perhaps you'll need to expertly climb a tree in order to not be mauled by an owlbear. Yep. Perhaps you'll need to cause a crumbling pillar to crush one of the many legs the sand spider uses. And who's to say? Let's say your fighter can do more damage than your bard, but maybe your bard, by using the environment, is more effective. For example, let's say every round the fighter has the ability to kill one ogre, and there's a party of 6 ogres going after the party in a valley, and this valley is like a dry gorge or gulf or whatever, but the bard climbs up on a cliffside to push over one of those precariously tall pillars of rock and stone that have been eroded away, and the bard gets between the wedges his back and his feet between the pillar and the rocky wall, and then pushes the pillar over to tumble down into the gorge to block and even crush some of or all of the ogres. Well, yes, the fighter does more damage, killing one per round, but if the bard knocks the pillar over and crushes all 8 of the ogres, technically the bard was more effective. And that's just using the environment, you know? Yeah. A mimic grabbing someone is easy to stab, but a mimic that hides as a coin under a sewer grate then pulls your arm up to the shoulder down is much harder to deal with. Yeah, I mean, just using simple things like iron grates, right? Like undead trapped in an actual dungeon with their undead arms reaching for the party members, and then when the party members are fighting a different enemy, gnolls or lizard folk or whatever, and then each side is trying to push the other side against the bars so that the undead arms can grab them and rip their flesh off or something like that. That's a great encounter, especially like you said, the coin that's in the bottom of the sewer grate that pulls a PC's arm down into the sewer grate, or the players are being attacked by enemies with spears that are on a grate above their heads, and trying to stab down at them or whatever, and the PCs are trying to crawl, but they're also trying to fire up spells past the iron grates, whatever. It's kind of cool. Gaster says the environment not only just adds setting, but the ability to truly come up with some clever ways to kill monsters, and the monsters kill you back too, right? Let's not forget that. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, so Wily Coyote, you guys are silly. Well, having been through several hurricanes, they frequently spawn numerous tornadoes, lots of sustained high winds, lightning, and tremendous rain. We need to do something about like the weather we have here in the States and using that in our games, right? Because most of us live in places like I live in the Ohio Valley. I personally don't live in a floodplain, but there's a lot of people that do. And we also get the end of, like, we have tornado warnings every noon on Wednesdays. We have tornado sirens because they test the sirens. Because here in the Ohio Valley, we get the end of the tornadoes that push through their tornado valley, moving up from, what is it, northeast Texas through Oklahoma, a little bit of Kansas, things like that. Yeah. Yes, for Two Souls says we could use monsters to perhaps gain sympathy. Yeah, perhaps there's a mass endangerment of a certain dangerous territorial, but mostly harmless monster. Rust monsters, owlbears fit into that category. Axe beaks, kind of things like that. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so let's get in. I wanted to show you guys um, how to design monsters, but you know what? You forced my hand. You forced my hand. So let's go find the Tarask. Let's see if we can find it here quickly. I don't know how quickly we can do it. These are all NPCs and variants of various humanoid NPCs. Here, this is the Monstrous Menagerie and swarms of insects, at base monster animals. As we scroll up. White vampires, troglodytes. Troglodytes are a common thing that monster that we don't often see too much. Here we go. The Tarask. There we go. All right. Hey, I see you, Sturge. Sturge is still common. All right, here we go. We got the Tarask. And by the way, for those who don't know, we do have some many features here for in the Monsters Menagerie that help you as the narrator, the dungeon master, the game master, utilize them better. So we have some information on them. We have some legend and lore and the DC levels to find out some of that legend and lore using an Arcana or history check. We have some signs that the creature is around, such as a bright star appears, causing astronomers great consternation, or earthquakes shake every land, towers fall, and cities are consumed by fire. Maybe night falls, day does not return. I love that one. People with psychic abilities fall into a trance and prophesy chaos and destruction. Yeah, the Trask comes about. Ooh. But of course, it's a legendary monster. It has 1,230 hit points. It becomes bloodied when it's down to 615. And that's an average Tarask, right? We got all our abilities in here. But guess what it has? Guess what it has? It has radiant breath. Yeah, radiant breath. The Tarask exhales radiant energy in a 90-foot cone. Each creature in the area makes a DC 27 Constitution saving throw, taking 105 or 30 D6 radiant damage on a failed save or half damage on a success. Godzilla, anyone? Yeah. Oh, hell's yes. Hell's yes. Multi-attack, bite, and then some of its legendary actions such as attack, move, roar, elite recovery, chomp, and inescapable earth. Each inescapable earth, each flying creature or object within 300 feet falls, and its flying speed is reduced to 0 until the start of Tarask's next turn. Yeah, stomps on the ground and all kinds of stuff. Then it talks about combat situation. Now, you can turn this into an elite monster. Like, it's not just a common Tarask, it has a name. It is a Germunganger. It is the or Germunganger. I don't know. Anyway, it is the world ender. It is the name of something in your world, Monster Island or something like that. Of course, it has swallow capability, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yep, that's it. All right. So, let's go. Let's return back to creating monsters, and I want to show this to you because there's this really weird, strange behavior we have in the tabletop RPG community about not changing things that we have every right to change, because not only are we suggested that we change it and the rules say we can change it, it doesn't matter. You own it. there are no rules when it comes to how you use your own tools, right? So um, we are going to talk about Level Up Fifth Edition's monster creation, designing monsters. So here we have first come up with the monster story, right? What is the monster? How is it modified? Are you modifying a creature or starting from new? You want to determine the challenge rating. Of course, they suggest take something that's already in a book and modify it. So absolutely do that. And here they're helping you build a Firebird, but find a challenge rating. Um, Customize the abilities, like grant the monster any languages, senses, skills, saving throw proficiencies, movement forms, and traits you think it should possess. You can use existing traits and other statistics for inspiration, reskin, reuse, repurpose. Right? Most traits don't require a change to the monster's game statistics. However, if your monster has healing, regeneration, or damage transference abilities, lowers hit points by between 20 and 30%. And that's to keep the math normal. And then, of course, we have customized combat statistics such as armor class and how to do that. For example, you can raise or lower the monster's armor class by 1 or 2 points without altering it in any other way. If you change its AC by 3 or more points, you should reduce or raise its hit points or damage per round by 5% per point of AC you varied from the base AC. And this is to keep the math, again, within range. And then, of course, we have hit points and then attack bonus and attack penalties. And guess what? We have a nifty chart so that you can use this. So, for example, if we use this chart, a CR8 creature on average has an AC of 15, has 135 hit points, has a +3 proficiency bonus, has a +4 ability bonus on average, has 2 attacks, does 45 damage per round. So you can split that 45 average between the 2 attacks, how you prefer, 50-50 or one low, one high damage, whatever. If it has a capability the PCs need to resist. For an easy DC, it's 14. For a hard DC, it's 15. And then its average XP is 3,900. And honestly, take this chart, pull it aside. You can make any kind of monster you want by just using this chart. You can describe it, how it looks. You can describe, this is basically gives you everything you need. Armor class, hit points, bonuses for die rolls or saves, some easy or hard DCs because of some of its capabilities, kind of average damage that it does. You don't even need to roll the dice. You could just roll the damage. Or if you want to steal from Sly Flourish, what he suggests is take the average damage per round, 45, 70, 10, subtract 3 from it, and then roll a d6 for the damage it does. So if you don't want to just use the same number over and over and over again using static damage, he suggests subtracting 3 from it and roll a d6, or subtract 6 from it and roll 2d6 to vary the damage so that your players can be fooled a little bit. So kind of cool, designing monsters. And then, of course, we get down into what kind of attacks does a creature have. You can use whatever is as examples and change its damage types. Again, reskinning, reusing. We have damage per round that it does, conditional damages from special abilities, special attacks like area effects or limited use abilities, or inflicting conditions. We also have the how to use the difficulty class or the DCs. And lastly, we end up with our example monster, and you can use all those as well. And in the Monstrous Menagerie, they give you example CR monster mashups so that you don't have to. So, yep. Let me get back into what you guys are saying because I'm ignoring you. Yeah, Jumungager. I've heard it pronounced your mum Gundor from Swedish Friends. Yeah, I know I butchered it. Although all words are made up and all words are mispronounced to somebody. So yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Gaster says, I wanted to make it rain fish. That seems like a fun event. I don't know how fun that would be. Perhaps a small leakage of the ethereal plane of water seeps through into the mortal plane and it begins raining fish. Although it rains fish during hurricanes and things like that. I don't know if you need to do that. Mike Maron says, "Oh man, an undead prison with zombies at the cell bars as a hazard rather than a monster is a great encounter that dictates and inspires lore." And that's before you add flooding or Arctic wind. Yeah, you don't have to add any of that kind of stuff. But yes, yeah, if the enemy decides to open up one of those cages and let the undead flood out, or just kicks a PC in the chest and slams them up against the bars so that they can get their flesh rended off. I like that kind of thing. The Yanking says the worst part about tornadoes are uncertainty. You notice it's tornado weather, then cross your fingers and hope it isn't above you. Then you check the weather and do the scientific things. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And the way they touch down. Oof. Shadow says, we had a few tornadoes in the country north of me just the other day. Weather is fun. I'm a trained skywarn spotter. Kind of goes with the ham radio thing. Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome. But I'm used to weak tornadoes back in Florida. And here in Tennessee, we get stronger ones. But yes, weather in game sounds like something worthwhile. Yeah, I think we undersell. Strange that we in this United States, where we are some of the highest purveyors of role-playing games, undersell our own weather. Maybe it's because we're just used to it, but I think, and I don't know if I'm true in this, but I'm going to hold it to heart. I'm going to make a challenge that I think the United States has the largest number of varied weather events than any other countries in the world. I don't mean a singular event. I think we have the most weather events of all weather events in one nation. And from earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, fires, mudslides, droughts, floods, uh, all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I kind of think that we kind of have a potpourri of dangerous events here, despite the fact that we still like to live where we do. Gaster says, not as scary as sand spiders, though. Giant arachnids who live within the deserts of the third ring. They mainly burrow during the day, but will unburrow and hunt for prey, like trapdoor spiders. A young sand spider is said to be 6 feet tall and 5 feet wide. However, there have been rare occurrences of a mature sand spider being spotted standing about 40 feet tall and 50 feet wide. I love it. Hey, thank you, Jacques Cousteau. I love those kind of things. Yeah. Yeah, the Death Angel says changing up creatures really throws off those players that memorize the MM. Yeah, the monster manual. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the whole point, right? Yeah. That's the whole point of like sometimes all you need to do is just change the name. Just change the name. Don't call it a troll. Don't call it an owlbear. Don't call it just describe what it is and let the players twiddle their fingers and scratch their heads and go, what is it again? And then they go, oh, I get it. Oh man, you fooled me, right? Or keep the monster exactly the same, but just describe it in its environment. So gnolls, right? Um, the jackal people, or whatever, hyena people, right? Describe them differently. Maybe they are hyenas in one place, jackals in another. Maybe the PCs assume they're were creatures. Describe them as something else, and then never call them gnolls in the first place. Or villagers call them gnolls, but they really are werewolves, right? So that kind of stuff. Yeah, greatest variety, North America in general, I would say yes. Yeah, I'm thinking between all of our coastlines and then all of the stuff that happens interior wise and then all of our seasons. I'm thinking we probably have the most varied extreme weather events of all the seasons. Now, there are tropical places that get hit harder with, say, tropical storms, which are probably stronger than ours. But then I would say, well, do you get the same amount of snow and sub-zero temperatures? Do you get the amount of ice that falls? Do you get the landslides that we get and the earthquakes that we get? That kind of thing. Call of Cthulhu makes a big deal about never using monster names and only descriptions to keep players guessing. Hells yeah, yeah. Do that all the time. Or allow your NPCs to misinterpret things because they're just plain old NPCs, right? If villagers are like, the dragon people keep attacking us, and are they lizard folk? Are they Sahogin? Are they dragonborn? Are they Yuan-Ti? Are they Naga? Who knows, right? Describe those that ogre as one of those dragon people, just with scales or fur or something like that. Just re- use the stat block, ignore all the other stuff, and then be consistent. Be true and be consistent. So if you have a lieutenant that is using the ogre stat block that's part of a goblinoid tribe of hobgoblins, then describe the muscles or the power that they have, or the magic item that they're using, or the blessing they got from an evil deity or something like that that gave them their power and made them grow 2 heads taller than everybody else or whatever, right? But even then, I love to simply put in a troll that's weak to lightning instead of fire in D&D. It dramatically changes the fight with no effect. Oh, absolutely. Changing or even adding in weaknesses, changing their sensory perceptions, having a monster that was already injured prior or starving, weakened, diseased, wounded, trapped, even. Maybe it's missing a limb or something. You could even have those monsters. What's another way to say this? The monsters could have varied origins. So was it summoned by a wizard, or was it cursed because of the evil that they did, because they decided to kill a villager? Did they drink a little bit too much hag's milk and suckle upon the teat of the evil hag in the swamp, or did they drink a concoction um, by an apothecary who is a shape changed rakshasa that's trying to institute chaos and such, and then shape change as a person who will solve all the problems of the village. The Yanking says, like, have them lose sanity points when they notice the sky or feel the humidity despite the rain. Yeah. How many Listen, we had some strange weather events like thunder, snow, um, rain when the sun shines, stuff like that. Or don't look outside and have a clear sky, and then on the horizon there's a big black line of clouds. It's like, oh my god, right? Or suddenly there's no wind at all, and it's deathly quiet, and you hear nothing. You don't hear birds, you don't hear chirping, you don't hear rabbits, you hear nothing. When the wildlife is silent, you're just like, oh shit, right? Yeah, have the tornado have an inhuman face. Yep. Or have it be sentient and reacts to the player's actions. It makes patterns in the ground or targets infrastructure. Yeah, hell's yeah. Hell yeah. Make Some monsters shouldn't be combatable. Sometimes it should just be the environment. I feel that anyway, especially in a fantasy realm, or maybe the players are going to different dimensions, or the enemy that they're fighting has such command over the environment that the very ground and the earth or the air itself is attacking the PCs. And what a great way to describe like elementals. They don't have to be humanoid at all. It could be the ground just shaking or something like that. It could be the end result of a titanic battle between two godlings, stepping over mountains, fighting each other with clouds around their waists as they swing swords and cast spells at each other, and the end result are like dangerous weather events or something like that. But anyway, guys, I wanted to show you guys things to basically make your encounters better, just improve them. As a matter of fact, let's go into let me find something else here. I will show you world. Let's go to the Adventurer's Guide. Bam, and I'm going to search for world actions. Let's see, will it come up? World actions. All right, let's see. Is it right here? There we go. Okay. So no, 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 that's not what I want. I want the boop, 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 world actions. Okay, here we go. Yeah, under world actions, in the adventurer's guide. Come on, let me allow me to do this. In the world actions in the adventurer's guide, sometimes the world itself is placed into the initiative order. So for here, an example, it says the raging storm howls and a bolt of lightning splits the ground in front of the adventurers. Souls lost to the sea manifest amid the fervor of the fishing competition for another chance at the perfect catch. The battlefield itself can be as an active a participant in turn-based action as the characters are, and its actions can have serious consequences for everyone involved. Some bonuses and penalties have an effect that it activates within the initiative count. These world actions occur at the start of each round before the participants act, and in this way, it it means that when world actions happen, the player characters now may need to change their tactics in order to account for the world actions that are happening. So let's see, for example, okay, boom, 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 boom. So of course we do have world actions. Simple one is difficult terrain, but we know difficult terrain is a little bit boring, a little bit boring. But what other world actions can we have? So examples include these, like cavernous, fiery, um, forested, frigid. I'll stop on one of these in a minute. Furnished locations, stormy, hazy places, swampy, rocky locations, et cetera, et cetera. And so, for example, in a swampy location and some of the world actions, maybe there's a thick trudge, so the area hazard counts as difficult terrain. There's also tenacious mud. So when a participant ends their turn in this area hazard, they make a DC 12 strength saving throw or are restrained until the end of their next turn. They can use their action to break free of this effect. So it uses up an action for them to basically pull their legs and arms and things out of the thick, tenacious mud. And then in the world action at the beginning of the round, before everyone takes their action, there's swamp gas. So participants in mud make a DC 10 Constitution saving throw or are poisoned until the end of their next turn. And it's basically dangerous swamp gases and things. And at a recharge of 6, so you roll a D6, and if a 6 comes up, there are leeches. A swarm of insects, leeches, rises out of the swamp to attack any creature in the marsh. And so again, this could change what the players do because of the world actions. Here, let's go back with this, since we're going to end this here with stormy world action here, right? And you can just overlay this. You can reskin it, reflavor it for your particular world. So you have heavy precipitation. Area counts as difficult terrain. Although personally, I would change this that like it would reduce like fire and put out fires, and maybe like or maybe everyone has resistance to fire or something like that. Knocking flame attacks down by 50%. There's loud winds. All participants can only hear sounds within 15 feet of them, except for loud explosive noises, which means you probably can't hear that healing word, and you can't talk to your allies unless you're within 15 feet. And then down here we have forceful gale. A single participant makes a DC 12 strength saving throw, or they are pushed 15 feet in one direction. This movement does not provoke opportunity attacks. And a single participant, who is that? How about everybody roll a D20, and whoever gets the lowest roll, that person is pushed. Although I think lowest ties, like if two people, maybe a PC or an enemy rolls a 3, I would say both of them get pushed by the winds, and that might affect what happens on the battlefield. And then we have lightning strike with a recharge of 5 and 6. A single participant makes a DC 10 dexterity saving throw, or they take 4d6 lightning damage. They cannot be targeted by this action again until turn-based action ends. And so, because you can never get hit by lightning twice. You hear that old adage, right? So you roll a d6. If it's a 5 or 6, a lightning bolt comes out of the sky. Who does it go after? roll a d20, see who gets the lowest roll. Now you're the target of it, and you got to make a saving throw, or boom, get hit by that lightning. But if you get hit, maybe you're all right. So anyway, um, just using the environment and using all of these features, um, I just feel like, and even the End King talking about sanity, because there is fatigue and strife within Level Up Fifth Edition. All these things complicate the lives of the players. Uh, More vectors for complications, which I love. Mike says, "Have we ever had easy terrain, high angled ground, which gives movement speed and advantage to hit?" I don't know. Although I guess a steep hill would kind of act that way, right? Like going up the hill is very difficult. Going down the hill, you turn into a ball, you get extra movement, or you get movement whether you like it or not, right? I don't know. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, wow. Mike says, "I'd love to see a party beat a pack of orcs fighting on the side of a hill just by outmaneuvering them. That'd be why not? I would. Hell's yes, hell's yes. Yeah, like maybe it's been raining. It's a muddy hill, and the PCs have to maneuver up and down the hill. Like it's difficult to move up, faster to move down the hill. But if you're pushed or grappled or knocked prone, you then slide down the hill." Right? So if you push, because normally a push and shove, you either knock them prone or you could push them like 5 feet. But if everyone who falls or decides to move up or down the hill, let's say there's an automatic movement of an additional 20 feet. So maybe you can hit an orc and he slides downhill 25 feet, and that that kind of stuff. I don't know. Des Angel says, "I don't know. I know a park ranger that was struck 5 times." Yeah, but maybe they got superpowers, right? You don't know that. You don't know. Yeah, struck by lightning 5 times. There are people who have been struck multiple times by lightning. Some people have been struck by lightning and not suffered any ill effects, um, except for the fact that they got struck by lightning, right? So, anyway, guys, thank you very much for allowing me to show you this. I actually showed all 3 books here. This is the what did I show you? This is the adventurer's guide, and the pages of, let's go to it. Let's get rid of this and then show the 2-page layout. And so yeah, these are boop, 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 boop. These are world actions, and it was just showing off some world actions that you can use to layer into onto your battlefield to make things more interesting. Moving over, we have the Trials and Treasures book, and talking about exploration and creating combat encounters, and using how to use exploration to change the wind conditions by closing a gate or getting to a particular location or having a chase to get to a place, and also adding in these extra elements that increase the CR value of the monsters and makes them more dangerous, but it also means that it complicates the lives of the player characters. And lastly, we have our Monstrous Menagerie, and a Monstrous Menagerie telling you how to make monsters and giving you the chart of the average monster and the average CR levels from their armor class, hit points, their proficiency and ability bonuses, and how many attacks they should have, and their hard and easy DCs that they should create for the players, so you can create monsters on the fly. Very easy. So, guys, this is again another look at Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. Little features. I wasn't exactly planning to show you all 3 books, but all of these elements combined together, used individually, one element, 5 elements, combining them and making them your own and making them part of your world. Maybe a part of your world is besieged by winter storms and weather and high seas and flooding and tornadoes and hurricanes, and that makes it more interesting, especially when maybe one of your players loves to fly and you're like, you're not going to want to fly around this region, right? Maybe the players encounter a number of monsters that they just haven't been able to fight, like yetis that are hiding out in the heavy winds and thick fog and blizzard-like storms that are pushing the players back as they try to push forward, and the Yetis are snatching the PCs down into the snow, or tackling them into the frigid waters to kill them and choke them, as whatever. All that, all the good stuff, all the crazy good stuff. So, yeah. Desiree Angel says, I've been debating about ordering the A5E set. Go to here. Let me copy this. Um, take don't take my word for it. Go to this link, the A5E tools, and let me. All right, let me get rid of this. Stop sharing this, and then I will share this instead and pop this up here. Go to Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. There's the tools. There's a bunch of pull downs. There's a bunch of pull downs. You can go straight across this, look up whatever you like, see if it's something useful. Maybe you have some, I can't give you as much detail. So maybe you want more detail about magic items or the combat maneuver system or the characters or the specific books. And maybe you only want to order one or more of the books. Maybe you want it as PDF or the physical book or something like that. And so, go over to this. It's still in beta because they keep adding new things. It kind of won't it kind of won't ever leave beta because of the continued functionality. Sometimes people find different things in here as well that are like dead pages and whatnot. So just be aware of that. But it's constantly being updated. So yeah, just go up to A5E.tools, log in, create an account, log in, and take a look at it. And then, of course, over here in the recent blog posts, there's of course, they want you to buy the books, but there's also a blog post so you can go, for example, there might be errata, or there's a Gate Pass Gazette if you join the N World's Patreon to get the Gate Pass Gazette. There are more like heritage gifts compiled, and a Dungeon Delver's Guide has been released, and the content has been added. New traps and exploration challenge types added. So if you click that, you get popped in over here. New traps and exploration challenge types added. So there's a new category split into constructed and traps to make it finding things. So if you hit constructed traps, it is now in here. So you can use different exploration challenges. Like, let's look for exploration challenge 2. We want challenge rating 4. We want them to be constructed, and then we apply, and then it will give us an exploration challenge. Ooh, maybe it didn't come up. Let's reset. That was terrible. Oh, that's probably because they don't exist on that number or type. But here we have a number of exploration challenges like acid pit traps or altitude sickness, ballistas, black dragon pool trap, and then it tells you, is a trap is it more like terrain, what kind of area it covers, what the tier level is, what challenge rating it is, because exploration challenges have challenge ratings where you get experience points for dealing with them. So yeah, choking smoke. And so if you go to choking smoke, third tier weather event, challenge rating 11, gives you the XP values, DCs to resist it. It's an immediate area, which probably take you about 3 hours to circumnavigate the choking smoke. And here it says, a massive fire, volcanic ash, hellish fumaroles, or a burning city have covered the landscape in a thick, suffocating cloud. And of course, there's choking smog. Face coverings can help out. Hazy vision, keeping low. A spell solve, such as a gust of wind, could help you get advantage on saving throws to get out of the smoke. There's possible solutions, and you could also leave it be. So, yep, and then it pops you back to trials and treasures. Go on. So, yep, A5E. A5E.tools. Mike says, highly recommended. Better than WotC's offerings if you're a DM, in my opinion. Yeah, and again, some would say, well, isn't this just a bunch of house rules? And the answer is yes. It was built off of examples, and you can use this to kind of compare and contrast with Tales of the Valiant, created by Cobalt Press, Dagger Hearts coming out from Critical Role, MCDM, I think, is going away from D20, but we don't know yet. So yeah. Death Angel says, that's cool. I've been funneling what I was spending on WotC into other things. Yep. Kickstarters, third-party materials. Me too. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for letting me express my love of A5E. Granted, I was a member of a large 30 plus group of people that helped create this damn thing, but I wanted to do it. So I don't promote things I don't like. It's a waste of time, right? So guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Have a great one. I got to get out of this place. Of course, I will be back. Peace.